There. All right, welcome to Aegis 360, one of our complimentary pop-up 30-minute videos that we're running. And on your screen there, you can see that we have our upcoming webinars that we're running as well. Our next one is April 2nd, which is Work-Life Balance Even a Thing? And then after that, we have our 1 hour, which is a second in a larger series of business acumen, strictly focused on finance. We want to introduce my friend. That's me, Ned Parks, in my book, and then our friend Jason is with us. And Jason is my personal trainer, and he has Revolution Fitness and Therapy in Stowe, Ohio. And Jason, welcome. How are you?
Ned, thanks for having me. Looking forward to a great conversation today, and just trying to see how we can help as many people as possible.
Well, I appreciate that. And what we're talking about today is staying fit at your desk. No matter what, people go to work, whether they're working in an office or at home or wherever their desk is, and we find ourselves kind of stuck there sometimes and not a lot of activity, and we want to do a little bit of a workout. We want to do something. So I wanted to take this time and just say, are there some things that we can do? And we're going to go through some of those when we're at our desk or in our office environment. And then as you know, and as I know, you can't have this conversation and not talk about food, because the other thing we do at our desk is eat. So we'll get to that as well. And then we're going to give you some contact information on Jason. But before I get going on that, you've been in business now for, is it 10 years? Is that right?
Yeah, so this year will actually be 11 years in business. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is pretty incredible. And you're running around 100 clients. Is that an accurate number?
Yeah, so I have, as of the moment of this recording, I have around 90 clients, and that includes both people that I see face to face and online. So yeah, that's how we do it.
Right, and then you also have a podcast that you've had for about 4 years, and you've had how many downloads? You told me, and I just about fell off my chair.
So I started a podcast called Revolutionary You in 2016. And we just this week released our 244th episode, and we hit over 200,000 downloads last week. So it's always cool to see. It's cool to see. Not just, I have it's very guest centric. So if you're looking to just hear me talk, it's really not about me. It's about the guests that I feature. And it's always interesting to see, who has a really broad listening audience that wants to hear, their wisdom. So it's, it's always educational.
Great. Well, we're going to give information on how to find that when we get to the end of this. So let's just kind of start off here, Jason, and tell us a little bit about how we're moving. This is an interesting title to me. How will you move? So can you just kind of talk about some of these items we have here?
I sure can. So, you sort of tipped your hat to it. A lot of us, we are glued to the office, and it's easy to get sort of stuck in this rut where you're taking call after call, or you've got project after project that you're working on. And, for many people, the badge of honor is how busy can I be? And I certainly understand being busy, and in many ways it's a good thing. But if movement is important to you, for some people, they feel like if I can't get to the gym, then it's just not worth it. And I would, respectfully disagree with that, because for some people, they really just need to get in something. Like they need to get their butts out of the chair and just feel like they're stimulating their body. And I'm going to come back to the term stimulation probably a lot in this conversation today. So when I talk about how will you move, it's how are you going to move in the way that works best for you, because we're all working with different bodies. We all have a completely different foundation for what our bodies can do at this point in time. And the first part of this was just how are you going to schedule it? Because as I mentioned, it's very easy to become a slave to our schedules. And if you don't take the time to prioritize, okay, on the first 10 minutes of every hour, the last 10 minutes of every hour, I'm actually going to get out of my seat and I'm going to go walk around, or I'm going to do some of the movements that we might talk about. Or maybe you're in a better position where you can actually take 20 or 30 minutes to step outside, go for a walk, or actually do, say, a body weight workout. So you don't have to be in a gym to do something that's actually beneficial for you.
Interesting. You talk about positive movement. What do you mean? Is that just that you're refreshed, or that it's positive in some mechanical or mathematical way?
Yeah, so I'll definitely touch on that. So I'll kind of get through the rest of the list, but yeah, I mean, you basically hit the nail on the head. I mean, when we talk about movement that feels good, it's not uncommon for me to hear someone say, "Well, when I do a squat, it hurts my knees." And a lot of times, what we see, or what I see as the coach, is when I see the way that people squat, that can be even painful to my knees just to watch it. So it's about, okay, how do we get you squatting in a way that is as pain free as it can be, and then also, being mindful of the fact that things like uh, running work really well for some people, and for somebody else, yoga works really well. But assuming that everybody should enjoy running is probably not fair. Just like not everybody should enjoy or get benefit from yoga, because it just doesn't work for everyone in the same way and give you that same "I feel good when I do this" feeling. Um, we also have to consider, what do you have access to? I have clients who, even though they're glued to their office for 18 hours a day, they actually might have, say, a standing desk. They might have a treadmill that's underneath their desk that they can actually get steps in. They might have bands. They might have light dumbbells. So it is really important to understand, okay, what do you have access to? Because the more you have access to, the more we can potentially do. But if all you have is your body weight, there's still options. And when I talk about positive movement, I talk about things that, when you do it, do you actually feel good? Like, okay, I feel like I got my body moving. It's not necessarily that I broke a sweat, but I feel like, that hunched, shoulders forward. We've been just, laser focused on everything that's on our computer, laptop, tablet, whatever it is. Let me get my butt out of my seat and open my hips up a little bit so I can feel like my butt cheeks haven't been flattened for the last 4 hours. So it's things like that where, when you get done, you're like, okay, I did a good thing for my body.
So let me throw something in there. My own personal experience with you, Jason, is, and I guess this is maybe my word, about you, kind of your approach, but you take a very sustainability approach. And I don't mean necessarily from the environmental standpoint, but I think what I mean is that everything you do with eating habits and with workout habits is you try to make it so people will actually do it a second, third, and fourth time. And you and I have had conversations about the 1 hour workout opposed to the 30-minute workout. In your studio, you do 30-minute workouts, and then we're done. And as you say, if you want to hang out, knock yourself out, but we're done, and that some people don't feel good unless they've killed themselves for an hour and they're dragging themselves out of the gym. And other people, they do that 3 times, they never go back to the gym. So, to me, I just heard that kind of peppered into what you're talking about with this positive movement. Do you feel good?
Yeah, and it's I do want to come back to that for a second, because I'll be the first person to say, when I started this business almost 11 years ago, I had a different philosophy for how workouts should go. I thought that every workout should be completely random, that everything was a surprise, that you were here, working your butt off for 45 to 60 minutes, because I thought that was the right way to do it. And what I saw was, not that I didn't see, decent results. I did, but what I didn't see was retention. I found that it was harder and harder to get people to come back time and time again, and it became harder for them to fit in 45 to 60 minutes. What I did find is they did a lot better with 30 to 40 minutes. And so it became, okay, well, how can we do something that still has an impact, that doesn't crush you in that time, and lets you go back and live a life? Because not everyone has the luxury of just tying themselves to the gym. And it became sort of this, sort of holistic approach, where it's like, well, if we take care of the food, and if we take care of a sort of a, to use your word, a sustainable training program, then people feel good, they want to come back, and they tell more people about us. So there's a running joke in the fitness industry that the worst trainer in the world can make you sore. And I tend to believe that, it doesn't take a lot of skill to make somebody sore,
Right.
but to make somebody want to come back for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, maybe it takes a little bit of finesse, and a little bit of relationships, and a little bit of, hey, maybe that bald man isn't as crazy as I thought. And I'm crazy, just not that kind of crazy.
Yeah, I understand. So you've got some stretches here. If you could share some of these with us, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So I'll try to describe these the best way that I can, and hopefully as I kind of go through it, and plus what's on the slides as well, it makes a little bit of sense. The first one I want to talk about is just a prisoner lat stretch. So I'll be able to show you this because of how I'm sitting in my chair right now. The rest of them are going to be a little bit more difficult to demonstrate. But if I take my hands behind my head, like I just got in trouble with the law, and if I just very gently dip down, one elbow towards that hip, I'm going to feel a nice big stretch right here. And I just want to sort of sit into that stretch and just take a couple moments just to breathe. And if you can get yourself a little bit lower, great. And if you can't, maybe you're a little bit more locked up. But just take some time to go side to side. Maybe you spend 30 to 40 seconds on a stretch like this just to sort of open up the shoulder blades and feel like, okay, I'm no longer, again, hunched over my computer, laser focused on the task at hand. I'm just trying to open the shoulder blades up a little bit. So that's a prisoner lat stretch, and it may go by a different name, but this is the one that I associate it with. Scapular wall slides are something that we also do a lot here. And Ned, I've been very fortunate that not only have you allowed me to train you, but your wife and your daughter as well. And we've all done this exercise. So this is something that whether you have to stand against a wall or sit, or even if you lie down on the ground, the way that I like to teach it initially is if you will sit down against a wall, you're going to set your shoulder blades against the wall and then fingertips. And you're basically just going to work just like this. So it's almost a snow angel. So shoulder blades stay against the wall, fingertips are against the wall. You do not have to smash your elbows against the wall or force your entire back against it. It's just so you can get a little bit of movement back in these shoulders, and again, start to kind of open up some of the things that are happening between the shoulder blades. You don't want to force anything. Some people really don't have a lot of range of motion in that shoulder joint. So if you feel like you have to force it, that's not the goal. It's just trying to open things up a little bit. And you can go probably 15 to 25 reps on these. What I tend to see is whenever I show this to a client for the first time, they look at me sort of funny, like, well, when are you going to add weight? And I said, well, you just let me know how that feels once you get to maybe rep 15. And then all of a sudden the light bulb comes on where they're like, wow, okay. So yeah, now I know what you mean. So treat it like a stretch. This is not something that like when you do it, the heavens are going to open and the angels are going to sing because you've achieved the holy grail of movement. It's
Right.
just the way that you can, again, get the body, just get some blood flow happening. The cat camel is something that, my gosh, I've seen everything from physical therapists to yoga teachers to chiropractors, all mention this type of movement. You're going to get down on the ground. You're going to get on all fours. So your knees will be on the ground. Your hands will be on the ground. You're going to arch your back up like the way that a cat does when it's threatened. And as you do that, you're going to dip your head down and just pause and just sort of feel that movement. And then by comparison, you're going to let the spine just sort of sink down and sort of push your chest towards the ground. And as you do that, you're going to raise your head up. And the one cue that I've heard is when you do this, when you sort of alternate between these movements, you almost want to feel every vertebrae sort of unlocking as you're doing it. So take your time, make sure you breathe. And this is this is definitely one that you're going to feel too. The rear foot elevated hip stretch, it's a slightly more advanced stretch. For those that can do it, they know how effective it can be. But essentially, if you have something like a low seated chair, the actual seat itself, where you can get it kind of low to the ground, or an ottoman, or even a couch sometimes will work. But if you will rest your back foot against it and let your body sink down to the ground so that you have your knee is touching the ground for that elevated leg, and then your lead leg is forward, it's right in front of your body at a 90-degree angle. And you're just going to let your body sort of glide into that movement and then come back. So that's a little bit tough to describe. If anyone is interested in trying this, please feel free to let me know. My contact information will be at the end, and I'm happy to send you a video. But you can also just look this up by name. If you type in rear foot elevated hip stretch, you're going to find something pretty close to this on YouTube. And generally, it's going to be somebody that is doing what I'm describing. So.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. And these are all can be done in the office. I mean, seriously, you can find some, even in a hallway in an office, you can find a blank wall
Yep.
for the wall slides and so on and so forth.
Yep.
All right, some resistance training. We do a
Yeah.
lot of resistance training with you. I find it interesting.
So yeah, when we think about resistance training, a lot of times people just think weights, which, you know, weights certainly count, but your body is also a weight. And again, you're not going to achieve everything in the world that you need to by just using your body weight, but depending on how creative you get, you can do a lot with it. So for those who are able, an incline or a regular push-up is a great way, again, just to kind of get the upper body stimulated. For those that can do a true, you know, get down on the ground, what I call a military push-up, that's fantastic. For others, they may not be comfortable doing that. So you can use the edge of a desk, or say, you know, for some people that have high cabinets, if you're somewhere that has a countertop, that's also going to be an option. But you generally want to set the meat of your hands into the edge of that, you know, that raised platform. And when you come down, I'll try to get this as much in video as I can. What I see a lot of times do when people do push-ups is they do push-ups like this. So the elbows are really wide, and you'll tend to find that that's really going to hit your shoulders. And for some people, that's actually kind of painful. When I coach a push-up, I want something where the elbows are a little bit closer to the sides, almost like you're making an arrow with your, you know, your elbows, just that whole form right there. So again, the elbows don't need to grind the sides. You do want some space, but I want something more like this. So when you do that pushing movement, try to get the chest as close as you can to that raised platform, or that raised foundation. And that's what I'm looking for. More of an arrow stance when you do that actual push-up.
Said so much more kindly than my drill sergeant just told me how to do push-ups. But split
So
squats and lunges.
what's that?
Split squats and lunges.
Yeah, so then we've got squats and lunges as well. So again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, for some people, squats can be painful. A lot of times, if we just look at what's happening with form, we can generally tweak it enough to make it a pain-free movement. But I do want everyone to just remember, you know, you squat every day in life. You squat when you have to go to the bathroom. You squat to get in your chair. It's just, you know, some little form tweaks. But, you know, if we think about this, if you want, you can start with just actually getting up out of your chair and sitting back into it. That is a way to do a squat. You can go freestanding, meaning you're not going to use the chair to sit back into, and just do a body weight squat. Or for those that carry their handbags, a purse, a backpack, you can load it in the crook of the arm, so right in here in the elbows, and you can actually have a little bit more resistance to be actually able to squat with a fair amount of load. And that's a way that you can just do maybe 10, 15 reps and see how you feel. And again, we're just trying to get the body stimulated. We're not necessarily trying to break a sweat. But hey, if you find a way to break a sweat doing these, that's it's not a bad thing. As for split squats and lunges, so for those that don't know, a lunge is typically when you start standing straight up, legs together. A lunge is where you make a motion either forward in a lateral plane of motion, or reverse, stepping behind yourself. So if you're able to do that, that's great. If you can do it freestanding, even better. Some people may need to hold on to something just for a little bit of balance. A split squat is where you actually will split the stance of the legs, as opposed to starting, you know, legs together, and you're just going to descend to the ground and then come right back up. But the legs will stay split for the entirety of those reps that you do, as opposed to stepping out, stepping back in, that option for lunges. Last but not least, we have a plank. Most people know what planks are. I will tell you with all candor that the first time I had Ned's wife doing planks, I was not her favorite person on the face of the earth. I believe she called them plankies. So most everyone knows what a plank is. You can do them a couple of different ways, either on the forearms or on the hands in a push-up position. And I normally tell people go for somewhere between 30 and 60 reps, 30 to 60 seconds, and do a couple sets of those. It's just, again, we're just looking for movement. We're not looking for things that, again, are going to crush you, because chances are you're probably going to have to get back to work when you're done with this. And it may be trouble for you, to explain to the people that you're working with why you're out of breath.
the one thing about planks is they really do help with the core part of your body, correct? From a
Yeah.
muscle standpoint.
Yes.
I was at one time I was really out of shape, and I was out at a retreat with a client, and we got up early in the morning, went out and did some workout stuff, and probably shouldn't have been with them. And we did planks, and I got to tell you that I did them too long, and my lower back hurt so bad for
Yeah.
like 3 days.
Yeah.
And that was shortly before I decided to start working with you, because, I had gotten into this whole idea. Well, I was an athlete, I was in the military, I could certainly work out, blah, 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 blah. And what I didn't realize is my body's different. A, I'm terribly out of shape. B, and I don't know how to get back in shape without hurting myself.
Yeah.
And that to me was really important, to have somebody kind of guide me through this and not hurt myself. So the one thing I guess I would tell people is, if, we usually do sometimes 30-second planks, I think is what you normally have us do. But if you're starting at 10 or 15 seconds, fine, right?
Percent. Yeah, I mean, and it's a great point. And the other thing that I'll add to that too is, if I say 30 to 60 seconds, it's only a goal to shoot for. If you don't get there, you still have a baseline. If the best that you can do today is a 12-second plank, that's amazing. All you're going to try to do is, the next time you do that plank, see if you can hold it for 13 seconds.
Yeah.
You're just looking for incremental bits of progress. The other thing that I would definitely recommend, especially just for your own insight, is a lot of times we don't always know what's happening with our bodies. So if you have the wherewithal to do it, you may want to take your cell phone and actually take a video of yourself doing the plank, so that you can see, okay, do I have a tendency to pike up? Meaning the butt tends to raise a bit, or do I have a tendency to sink and let the butt and the hips sag? Because to your point, that's going to actually have an effect on how it feels to your back. So you do want as much of a neutral spine as you can have. And a lot of times you won't know if that's happening until you actually see that video. So it could be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, now here we go. Here we are. We can't do this and not talk about food. And your first couple of topics up here are just were a huge eye opener for me. So I'm just going to let you run with it.
Okay. So I love to talk about food. I consider myself a food first trainer, because for the clientele that I service, most people are coming to see me for weight loss. And whether you are glued to your seat, or whatever the case is that you have going on, in your office, whether you get to stand or you have to sit more or whatever, the way that you eat is going to affect how you feel. And I try not to overhype it when I talk about that. But here's the thing. Most of us are highly stressed, and the way that we eat tends to reflect that. So it's generally going to be the case that what you have access to is what you are going to eat and or overeat. So if you have access to chips, guess what? That's going to be what you're going to put in your mouth when you're like, wow, I'm either bored or stressed or mad or, hungry or whatever. Whereas if you have some other things like bananas or apples or protein bars, a little bit less likely for you to overeat those things. And they may be able to last a fair amount of time if you keep, say, some of these options in your desk, or on your, on top of your desk, that kind of thing. So really try to control your environment. Be mindful of the fact that you are primarily the one who is in control of what you put in your mouth. And so if what you have access to is quote unquote junk food, and I try to be kind when I say that, then that's probably going to affect the way that you feel. So things like protein shakes, fruit, and protein bars, these are all options for people. They don't work for everyone, but they work for a lot of people. And even though I've given 3 options there, you may not be able to do all 3 options. For some people, a protein shake is perfect. For somebody else, they actually need to be able to choose something. So a protein bar might be better. And Ned, you and I have had many, many conversations about this. But just because a food is healthy doesn't mean that you can't gain weight with it. And one thing that I want to point out while I'm on the topic of things that you can keep in the office is when we think about things like nuts and trail mix and granola, these are things that are fairly easy to keep in the office. And yes, they are quote unquote healthy foods, as opposed to, say, a Little Debbie snack. However, they are very easy foods to overeat. So a lot of people, like when you actually see, I think at this point, most everyone has been to a grocery store enough times to see what those 100-calorie snack packs look like that almonds come in. Well, I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but that's 8 almonds. 100 calories is basically 8 almonds, 8 to 10, depending on the size of them. That's not a lot of almonds. And I don't know about you, Ned, but when I eat a handful of mixed nuts, it's not satiating. It tastes good, but it's not filling to me. So I'm basically just throwing food down my gullet that it's like, okay, well, I ate something. I also ate 500-600 calories of something.
Right.
So it's tricky. So that's the one thing that I definitely want to say. And, as I had sort of wrapped you into that conversation, Ned, you and I had a very illuminating conversation not too long ago about salad. A lot of times people think, okay, well, I'm going to go down to the cafeteria. Many offices have cafeterias, and I'm going to go have a salad. And when you see the way that a lot of these salads are constructed because of dressing and cheese and nuts, oftentimes you have salads that have more calories than cheeseburgers.
Yep.
And that's a tough pill to swallow. And you and I, like I said, had a very eye-opening conversation about that. Salad dressing can really be a bear because we get it in these little containers that are about this tall, and we just take the whole thing and drizzle it across our salads. And what started off as just vegetables and maybe a little bit of chicken turned into like a 500-calorie explosion on top of that.
500 on a good day. 500.
Yeah, on a good day.
I kid you not. I started paying attention to that, and I have seen 800-calorie salads, and my maintenance is, well, my maintenance and the maintenance you want me on are two different maintenances. So let's not have that conversation. Never mind, because we've had that conversation too. But yeah. I try to stay somewhere in the 12 to 1300 calorie range. You actually said I can go a little higher than that on not on maintenance, but on deficit. But I have found, I mean, let's just use 1200 as an example, and that's not an uncommon number for someone trying to lose weight. If I blow 800 calories in one, I got 400 left the rest of the day. What the hell am I going to eat? I mean, now I'm upside down already, and I haven't even really started yet.
Yeah, so I want to touch on a couple things. Number one, when I sit down with individuals and we look at calories, I give them a goal. It's a deficit goal to shoot for. Many people will undershoot that because they want to get to their goal faster. And sometimes there's a little bit of a halo effect to it, because what happens is you get a couple things happening. Number one, it's faster weight loss. It's the instant gratification of faster weight loss. So you feel like, yay me, I get a gold star. And as you're losing weight, you do actually start to feel better. And what happens, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Ned, because you could say this so much more eloquently than I can, you hit a wall. And so, it's like a lot of things. We talk about the term moderation, but it's really, that's what it kind of comes down to. And when we were talking about sustainability earlier, you got to figure a way for sustainability with food too. So off the top of my head, I recall, your deficit calories being significantly higher than 12 to 13.
Oh yeah.
You found, a place where you're like, I can sort of live lower. And yes, it sort of worked. And there were times that you went lower than that and it didn't work. And you know what that bite in your butt cheek felt like when it happened.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things where, listen to your body. Getting to your goal is important, but doing it in a way that you don't hate every step of it is also very important, because, for most people, the goal is health. It's, I want to feel better. And so that's really, if there could be like an overarching concept to this whole conversation today is, yes, I've got to work 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Yes, I'm at my office, but I want to feel better. And so it happens from stretching, and it happens from some body weight movements, but it also happens from what we do and don't put in our mouths. And, we've got a little bit more to cover, but I do want to kind of come back to you, because I mean, Ned, you've lost what, 43 pounds so far? Yeah.
46.
46. Yeah.
And my daughter's lost 57 since she started with you.
Right.
So, we've had an enormous amount of success, and we'll just leave it go at that for today. But it's to talk about skipping meals, because sometimes people do this on purpose, and sometimes it's strictly by accident.
Yeah.
I just got too busy. I had to skip a meal. And, with my travel schedule, we've talked about, sometimes I'm forced into skipping a meal or eating a horrible meal, one or the other. Sometimes in the airport, I don't have a choice. It's 5 o'clock. My plane takes off in 30 minutes. I'm not going to, by the time I have a connecting flight, of a 30-minute connecting flight, and then I get home at midnight, it's either don't eat, and I'm already hungry because the last time I ate was at noon, and that probably wasn't great because I was at a client's and they always serve crap food. So I'm forced to either skip a meal or eat absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Talk about skipping, or some people do it on purpose. So
Oh yeah. It's all of the above. And so I do want to say this because I don't want to forget to say it. With all of this, with every single thing that we've spoken about so far, do the best you can. Do the very best that you can. Because here's the thing, Ned, you and I have been working together for quite some time.
right.
I don't coach perfection. I just coach progress. I just coach, did you do it better than yesterday? Did you do it better than last week? Did you do it better than the last time you were in Des Moines? Just find ways to just do it a little bit better, because it's rarely going to be perfect. But as far as skipping meals goes, there's a story that I have told more routinely over the years, because I see it more over time. And when clients come in when potential clients come in to talk to me about their weight loss plans, the question that I ask is this: on a typical day, from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed, tell me what you eat and drink. And what I hear very frequently is something to the tune of, well, I get up in the morning and I normally skip breakfast. I might have some coffee or something, and then I get to work, and things kind of start to get a little bit crazy, and sometimes I'll have lunch, but a lot of times I'll skip lunch because I've got so much going on. And then around like 2-3 o'clock, I'm getting pretty hungry, so I might snack on XYZ, and then I get home and I have dinner, and dinner's standard fare, and then I can't stop eating. And for those that don't know where I'm leading with this, there's a term for this, and it's called intermittent fasting. And the reason why I say it with a little bit of sarcasm is intermittent fasting is not new. It's been around for centuries. But it is one of those things where it's in vogue again. People are talking about it, and they like to prescribe a lot of magical properties to it. Unicorns that fart glitter and all that stuff if you do intermittent fasting. And it can be a fantastic tool for those who are mindful of what they're putting in their bodies and are trying to basically say, okay, well, I know that if I shorten my eating window, I can theoretically eat less. But basically, you've just put a name to that thing that you were suffering from when you came to see me. So I think for some people, it's true. Not everybody needs to eat breakfast. Some people, myself included, I just tend to do better with breakfast in me, but I'm a fairly active person. I'm moving a lot throughout the day. If you're eating the lion's share of your calories at the end of the night, chances are being hungry in the morning is not going to be your reality, because you ate so much before you went to bed. Most people would not be hungry in the morning. So this is where I like to look at a little bit more balance. And again, that's on an individual basis. For some people, the very best that they can do is just get in a protein shake. And I mean, even something like the little 160 calorie Premier Protein pre-mixed drinks that you can buy in the store, just to get something in your system to sort of balance out the day. Because what you're trying to keep from happening is you're trying not to have the big whoops that happens at the end of the night where you can't stop putting food into your mouth. And just try to balance the day out a little bit more. So again, listen to yourself. If you're dealing with being overweight, these are some things to be mindful of. Intermittent fasting is not magic, but it can be a good tool for those that know how to harness it.
But you have to, it can't be accidental. It has to be more of a prescription, at least a focused approach, a knowledgeable approach. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and if we just kind of play with some general numbers, if your goal, if for any person, if your goal to lose weight is 1,500 calories, that's the number. Like, there is nothing else. You could go lower, as we mentioned before, but it's not really encouraged. But intermittent fasting doesn't change that rule. You just have to get the 1,500 calories within that eating window. You don't all of a sudden get to eat 1,800 just because you skipped a couple of meals. It
Right.
doesn't change the laws of physics.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
so those, just some things for people to keep in mind. But like I said, for those that understand it and they understand that they still have to hit their, that relative goal, the intermittent fasting can be a helpful tool.
Okay. And then last but not least, good old caffeine.
Yes.
It gets us through the day, right?
It does. So, most people understand what I say when I say, a lot of people need their liquid crack. But the liquid crack can come in a lot of different forms. That can be coffee, it can be tea, it can be an energy drink, it can be a Diet Coke. And I don't have a problem with caffeine. What I will say is that not only do I, number one, see people tend to overdo it, but I also see that this is where calories start to creep in for a lot of people. So for the folks that like to eyeball their cream and their sugar, this is a place where you can really, really get yourself in trouble. So I will never tell someone stop drinking caffeine. I will just say where you can alternate it. So let's just say that, for instance, you typically drink 4 cups of coffee. I'll assume, for this conversation's sake, that those are black cups of coffee. So fairly harmless. See if you can go 1 cup of coffee, 1 bottle of water, and see if it helps you not only get yourself a little bit better hydrated throughout the day by drinking water and not, black caffeine infused water. But for those who actually do like to put things in, I would say you probably need to spend some time measuring, because I have had more than one person come through these doors that when I have them measure what they put in their coffee, and because they drink so many cups of coffee throughout the day, they are consuming 500 to 600 calories that they are not accounting for, because they're not thinking about it as food. They just see it as coffee.
Yeah.
And it's like it doesn't count, but it does.
It does
So,
count. It sure
so
does.
yeah, so the caffeine is fine, but I would just say, by and large, try to get in more water where you can, and really watch what you're putting into that coffee to make sure that it is as low cal as possible for those who are trying to watch their weight.
I wanted to share a sample workout that you had shared here not all that long ago, actually. And as I look at these, every one of these I could do in my home or in my office or somewhere. I don't need a gym to go to do these. And then you actually demonstrate these on a YouTube. So they're here. People can take a quick snapshot with their camera, phone, and then look this up and go take a look at it. And it's actually quite helpful.
Yeah.
So. The great philosopher Ned Parks once said, "Get up and move." That's my takeaway from this. Jason, I can't thank you enough for being here and helping out. I wanted to just talk a little bit about Jason's contact information is right here. And one of his hashtags is "We Make Great People Greater." And his other hashtag is not magic, it's just calories. And then he's got hashtags for every other thing under the sun that he makes up on the fly. It's actually quite impressive to watch. But I can't thank you enough for being here and helping us out today. And we should come back and do this again, because I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, thank you for just all the support that you and your family have been, just the tremendous results. And I hope people were able to take something beneficial from this, but it was really a pleasure.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Thank you.